Hello, everyone. Welcome and welcome, virtual audience, even though I don't know if you can see me. Hi. My name is Destiny, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to this event this evening. We have tons of events just like this. And so, just how you found this one, you can find out about a lot of the things that we have going on in the store. A lot of really exciting events coming up. So, always make sure to take a look. We have books for sale upstairs if you didn't sign up through Eventbrite and purchase a book already. So make sure that you take advantage of that. And if this is your first time here, restrooms are upstairs and past the cards. So you can make use of those as well. And last thing I'll say is Melania will be signing afterwards. So I'll just get a table out here and we'll get the signing line going if that's something that you would like. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our conversation partner and the lady of the hour, and then I will turn it over to them. So, one last thing. We will be taking audience questions at the end, virtual audience, you as well. So make sure to put your questions in the Q&A, and my colleague will make sure that they are asked if we have time. Born in Puerto Rico, Tatiana Figueroa Ramírez has received fellowships from VONA, which is Voices and Anafra Arts, having worked with Willie Perdomo and Danez Smith. Tatiana currently performs, facilitates workshops, and hosts events in the DC area, having previously done so across the United States and the Dominican Republic at venues including the Kennedy Center and New York University. Her work has been featured in MSNBC's Leguizamo Does America and the Acentos Review, among other publications. Tatiana is the author of Coconut Curls y Café con Leche and Despojo. Melania Luisa Marte is a writer, poet, and musician from New York, living between the Dominican Republic and Texas. Her viral poem, Afro Latina, was featured by Instagram on their IGTV for National Poetry Month and has garnered over 9 million views. Her work has also been featured by Ain't I Latina, Afropunk, The Root, Teen Vogue, Telemundo, Remezcla, Pop Sugar, and elsewhere. She is here to discuss Plantains and Our Becoming, her new book. When I read Plantains and Our Becoming, I was struck by how connected the Black diasporic experiences are. Melania has an incredible ability to lure you in with her rhythmic writing and then leave you with lines of depth that you'll have to reread and ponder. I, like you, am elated to have her here to speak today. So please join me in welcoming Tatiana Figueroa Ramírez and Melania Luisa Marte.
Hi, everyone. How are we? Good. Ready? Okay, so I'm going to read a few poems before we jump into the conversation. And so the book, just for those who don't know, is broken up into 3 parts. So we have part 1, which is Daughter of Diaspora. We have part 2, which is the history of plantains, and then part 3, which is on becoming. And now, just so you get an idea before we have our conversation, I'm going to read a poem from each section, okay? So this is part 1. A newlywed American portrait. My mother and father handcuffed at customs. And this is on page 14, if anyone wants to follow along. I picture them so innocent and young. Maybe they wore white linen as newlyweds often do, outfits coordinated and tailored, the air on the plane from Haiti to Florida smelling like vanilla cake and champagne. The flight attendant is singing, Porque Dios te hizo tan bella. I picture them dancing salsa as they land in Miami. The humidity, their hips swinging, security already warned, keep an eye on them. They must have seemed too joyous and carefree, too busy smiling and dancing on to the promised land. I picture my mother 6 months pregnant with my oldest brother. My father, a nervous, happy wreck. My mother, angry that he claimed her as his own. My mother insisting she does not know this man. My mother hoping he makes it out free so he can send help. My father reaching for his new wife. My mother, calm and calculated. My father, pulling out his blue passport as if it were a trophy. My father and his trophy wife are being detained. My mother, knowing they know her documents are fake. My mother and father handcuffed at customs. My father, fitting the description of El Machete, the lawyer he paid off who made immigration easy for so many. With his help, you no longer needed to climb a border or survive a boat ride. With his help, you could make it to the States in a first-class seat. With help, reparations came faster for Caribeños. With access, thousands of families got to eat good, not just enough. The truth is, I come from immigrants who came from immigrants who came from stolen people who learned to survive on land they did not steal, nor did they inherit. They simply squatted and plotted and peeled themselves a meal, an acre, a home. I come from loopholes and grievances and immigration lawyers who get paid to turn a criminal into an exceptional Negro. I come from detention centers and green land and busy saintly streets, and maybe this is not my land, but who is more deserving of it than me? So that's a poem. So the second poem is from the History of Plantains in part 2 on page 67, and it's called The Country is Black, but Our President is White. They pave a new street before the president comes into town, and we laugh. The pavement still won't be ready in time. For us, it will never be ready in time. Not for her, them, or he, not like this. It's been so long since last time. They forgot how long pavement takes to dry. It's obvious we all get lost in the thick of black sticky tar. Neighborhoods in you who want to be heard but no one to listen. Motorcycles and pasolas complained for years, tired from horsing people on broken infrastructure. I don't think it's healthy to be this forgotten or forsaken. The potholes got us robbed before we could speed. The government got us robbed before we could even see. I find it problematic to blame us for having no other choice. You don't find that suspicious? They blame the hole, the street with only one way in and one way out, the dead end, the earth it came from, the poverty that sprung. Blame the lie. Blame us for needing our money in our neighborhoods pouring concrete. When it rains, the holes become an ocean's cave for worms to swim free. When it's hot, the holes watch women in the backseat drive off with men who offer cold, fruity liquor and pesos in exchange for sweet and good times. When it's cold, the holes watch people burn tires and block the road. Remind the mayor we have nothing to lose if we can't even make it home. To be honest, I am not that observant. I just know basic math. When a thing is a thing that just don't add up. One country does not need to be under siege to be desperately in need for reform. My life is not an equal exchange, and that's why we here, 7 feet deep in the poetics of potholes and the lies of dirt that won't stick. Them potholes keep secrets and dug bullets in beasts. It's no mystery who the greedy monsters are, is it? Thieves who hide between sentences and teeth. All of what these streets have seen. Suspicious pot-licking ghosts tap dancing in suits to the tune of famished beats. This tired goddess shackled, feet frozen in our own asphalt. What would they do if they had no one beneath them to step on? Visit our barrio tiptoeing over wet cement, wear hard hats and ride around bulletproof jipetas asking us to smile for patience. Good things take time, and bad people take even more. Measure the potholes and see how much deeper they be. 3 pandemic years later, and still we wait. Sudden acts of kindness let you know when vampires are ready to show their fangs. I'm not even sure I know enough about politics to write this poem, but I am a black thing, covered in dirt, standing her ground, so I speak, even if no one will listen. And no one will listen. You don't find that suspicious? And finally, part 3 on becoming. This is from part 3 on page 101. Call me by my new name, opulently abundant, or thick with sap of sun-stained fruit, or money green and pregnant. Call me mother of royal earth. Call me cycle of ancestral survival. Call me a cacti discovering church, or call me the pea in pressure and pollination, or the eye in evolving and enticing. Call me master of her own mind, or alive and dangerous. Call me the beast that once and always was. Call me that flame, that girl, that fertile flora, or call me by my new name, the biggest, boldest vein on the butt of a new leaf. Thank you. I'm ready for you.
Oh, you're ready for me. So, how's everyone feeling tonight? First off, thank you so much for sharing this space with us. I'm super excited
thank you for being here.
to be here with Melania. Melania and I go a few years back.
Way back.
We trauma bonded a few years ago.
Literally.
And it was a beautiful thing in the end of it. But honestly, I have to first congratulate you on such a beautiful collection.
Thank you so much.
It really is gorgeous to see the arc and the journey that you go through in these poems and the stories that you tell. And I want to start off by focusing on actually this last poem that you read. And I think it really sums up what we see in you in this book. We see so many different versions of Melania, and we see so many different experiences and emotions. We get raw Melania, we get angry Melania, we get Melania in pain, we get Melania living in joy, and we get Melania finally feeling peace. So what was that journey like for you? Is that something that was intentional? Is it something that just happened when you realized it? What were you thinking?
Yeah, so I think I wrote a lot of the poems in part 1 first, which was Daughter of Diaspora. And so a lot of the poems are kind of focused on how to talk about all of the intersections of who I am, and then also like the stereotypes that are made of me, and then how to detach myself from those stereotypes and just allow myself to just be exactly who I am, and sometimes not apologize for it, and sometimes not do the explaining, and just let people Google things and find out information on their own. And sort of you kind of see from the poems in the poems about growing up in New York City to, Serpentine Salon and sort of Abuelita's Garden, sort of letting myself go of the pressures of the patriarchy and like, growing up in a very feeling so safe growing up in the midst of so much like chaos and danger. Shouts out to folks who grew up in the inner city because we survivors. Okay. But also, it's like having this grace and this love for where you come from, and also understanding that as a kid, you're navigating a lot all at once. And sometimes that means being catcalled and feeling like you're being your body is being sexualized, and like all of these things that we go through. And then I think that sort of led me to want to uncover how to find grounding in the midst of so much happening on the exterior. And that led me to part 2, which is the history of plantains, and sort of wanting to unravel, not only for me, but for like folks around me, these themes that are all interconnected as descendants, of enslaved ancestry, and like how to unravel that with grace in finding the humanity for our ancestors, and in using the plantains as this metaphor to go into the soil and come back up and sort of resurrect and bloom and thrive, even with that knowledge, right? Even with that grief and that deep sorrow and all of that, all of those emotions, and that anger, because for me, rage, it's so powerful. And so I wanted to then shift into, okay, now I'm exhausted, so I need to rest. So in part 3 on Becoming, I find that for me to really step into the human I wanted to be, I really had to get very serious about what rest does for me and how restorative it is and how beautiful it is, and how it honors the exhaustion of my ancestors, and how it gives me the grace and the humility to say, they have done enough grinding for all of us. And now it's time for us to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, you deserve rest, because your ancestors deserved rest, and because their ancestors deserved rest, and because God really believes in rest. And so like I really channeled that energy into part 3 on becoming. And so the poems, you can feel the softness, the rest, the joy, the freedom in just saying, you know what, I know some things, and then some things I got to take a nap and think on. And like letting that just sit, like letting things marinate, slow cooking, a lot of the poems are just slow cooked, and you feel it. And so I also wanted for folks to, figure out what becoming feels like for them, because for me, becoming means that I am so safe, so nurtured, so healthy, so rested, so green and glowing, that I have the energy to labor in the soil and come back up and become. And I think to become, and not everyone is given the gift of becoming. And so I think that when I wanted to have this topic of like how it's the plantains and how we're all becoming, and how in order to become we have to do it in community, because we need each other, right? Because individualism isn't working for us, and it has never worked for us, and it's not the language that our ancestors spoke. They were able to survive because they worked in community with each other. And so I wanted for folks to really kind of have that message to sit with and see how that can penetrate into their own lives. Like, what does that mean for you? What does that mean for your life? And how can you use some of that as like tools to, find that balance in your life?
Shout out to the NAP ministry.
Yes. Shout out to the NAP ministry.
I think this is something that you do so beautifully in this collection and on your social media, encouraging folks to rest and making sure that you're speaking on rest as a form of resistance, not just a form of self-care, but it's much more representative of how you were saying what all of our ancestors have been through and what we have inherited in that, right? So I want to go back to something that you mentioned in your journey. And I think, your focus on rest in this last section, and that being an act of resistance, and that being more authentic to you taking care of yourself and essentially not caring what other people think and just focusing on yourself, the imposter syndrome. So this is something, raise your hand if you've ever struggled with imposter syndrome, right? It's a real thing.
You're like, it's currently in the room.
Yes, probably. So, I wouldn't be surprised. It's something that we all struggle with. And, you hear fake it till you make it and all of these things. But, we were just talking in the back room together, which I wish you would have actually heard a bit of that. But we were talking about how, with imposter syndrome, you're constantly thinking about who is going to be reading this. And then you're already judging yourself based off of who is going to be reading it and who is going to be receiving it. And then after a certain point, you just let go. And we see that in here. We see you just not caring about anybody else except the folks that you are speaking to. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I just felt like, as a writer, imposter syndrome has robbed me of a lot of time and a lot of, doubting my genius. And I got to a point in my writing journey where I was like, not anymore. I was like, shun you. I beseech you all the, I was just like, you know what? I was like, if I even write 50% of the ideas I have and just let the imposter syndrome just go away, I was like, I think I can be amazing, you know, and I really had to just
You are amazing.
thank you.
But you know, like talk in the present.
Yeah. And so like in the collection, you know, the poem where I'm talking about but imposter syndrome is not something that you just like poof, it just appears out of nowhere. It's literally tiny voices of people who throughout your life have maybe told you to doubt yourself. And so this is why I wrote Swallowing Teeth in part 1, because swallowing teeth is really me talking about where's my imposter syndrome coming from. And then I through therapy, I go to therapy. My therapist is amazing. Shout out to
therapy. Take care of your mental health, please.
Yes. Through my therapy sessions, I was able to pinpoint the root of my imposter syndrome. And it really started in 5th grade in Mrs. Rodriguez's class. This white woman who was from the Midwest and moved to the inner city to teach kids. And at the end of the school year, and I actually enjoyed her class, but at the end of the school year, she gave me this magnet and it said, mean what you say what you mean, but don't say it mean. And then she said to me, you need to learn to be like nicer, were her words. And I was like, mind you, I was like, everyone loved me in class. So I was like confused. I was like, nicer. I've never been a rude kid. I've just always been like a leader. I've been a little bossy because I was just very sure of myself. And so I was very confident, and I would be like, let's do this. And like everyone else would be like, okay, let's do that, you know.
That's a great idea.
You know, and yeah, and she, to her, thought that assertiveness, that power that I had was too much. She thought I was just too much. And I was actually very excited to be in her class. And I would be one of the first kids with my hand up to answer questions. And I was always like very just very smart. And to her it was a lot. And then, you know, it just felt so just disheartening. And I remember literally feeling like I started shrinking. Literally from 6th grade forward, I can actually like pinpoint the instances of how I started shrinking and how even my posture, and like I wouldn't raise my hand as much. It took me all of middle school and high school, and then like going off to college, and then getting into my 20s to finally get that strength in my back again, and like be like, you know what? No, actually, I am brilliant. I am this, and I don't have to take up less space, and I can spread as wide as I am, and I don't have to try to like, you know, because I think that shrinking, it can like, you know, just permeate into everything you do. And for me, it permeated into how I perceived my creativity and how I would express myself. And then it took me into my mid-20s to finally say enough of that. And you know, I think it's so important for us to be honest about that, about how someone's perception of you and their fear of what you could be, right? Their fear of the power that you have, and that envy or jealousy or whatever it is, you know, impacts you, and how that can translate into this huge amount of insecurity and doubt and anxiety and all of that. And so yeah, it's just so exhausting, and it robbed me of a lot of time. And I finally had to let that go and heal that, because it wasn't, I wouldn't be able to have a career, you know, a poetry career, and I wouldn't be able to write with such confidence and such, you know, reassurance of the kind of stories that I really want to see on the page.
Yeah, and I think that there are so many layers to that just one experience. So, you know, you mentioned that imposter syndrome comes from tiny voices, and it's not just from individual people, it's from systems that are built against us.
Society, yeah.
Right, exactly. The world that we live in, just the way that it all has been built, not for us. It's all repeating all the time, every day. You're not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to be in this space. You're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to raise your voice. And just thinking about your experience with this teacher, there was probably patriarchy involved. There was probably white supremacy involved. You know, it's like, oh, a little brown girl is like speaking up and raising her hand, and she's actually right. She actually has great ideas. Oh, on top of that, she's the daughter of immigrants. Like, you got to be kidding me. Like, this is not okay. And then, you know, it translates into don't be mean. And I think even, you know, the the language around, I like how you said that you were a leader, because I think that there's so much negative language around femmes that are leaders, and we see it all the time, right? Like they're too strong, they're cold, they're too bossy, they're cold-hearted, and all of these things. And then if a man is to do it, oh, they are an amazing leader. They really know.
Yeah, like if it were like a boy, it would have been like, oh, he's gonna be president someday.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Great initiative.
Yeah,
you're always trying.
Yeah,
but Melania, tone it down a bit.
Yeah, you're too much.
Yep, exactly. And I really appreciate you including those stories and that vulnerability in this book, because I think a lot of people might see you now and they see how you have bloomed, and maybe they don't know the whole journey. Even myself, that I personally know you, I learned a lot about you in this book. And it's super helpful for folks that are coming up and, having similar experiences, to know I'm not alone in these experiences.
Yeah, and it really and that's why I included girl power. And the last line says, you girl are always on time and always on beat and always got style and finesse down to a T. You girl got power. Because I was super into the Cheetah Girls around that time. And I was in my head, I was Raven Simone. Okay. I was like, I am that leader.
I had the pink cheetah hat. Okay.
And so I was just like, yeah, like I really believed that I had power. I was powerful. I felt it. I was unstoppable. I wanted to be 20 different things. I was like, I'm going to be a writer. I'm going to be a singer. And then I can't sing. And I was like, but I was like, I'm going to be a writer, singer. I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a fashion designer. I was like on fire. And then here comes Miss Rodriguez talking about, you need to be nicer. I was like,
well, I hope Miss Rodriguez can see you now. Okay. Yeah. With all this whole book tour.
I need to go find her and give her a copy of my book.
You should and then write her a little note. Thanks for the magnet.
Thank you. Life-changing magnet.
For real though. For real. So one thing that I think, you do there's so much beauty in this book, but one thing we were talking about before that really stood out to me is the storytelling. And I think this is something that poetry often doesn't get a lot of love for. It's like, oh, it's so abstract. It's about expressing your feelings, which it is, and it can be. And there is so much storytelling behind it, but there has to be intention behind that storytelling, and your storytelling is so intentional, and it really takes me to those places. Like, for example, when you're talking about in your first poem, I was in the airport with your parents, so like those different situations, it really transports us into your experience and your journey. So I know this was a push for you. So, and it was you were flexing some muscles in this. So how did that feel? How did you talk yourself up into it?
Yeah, so I just really wanted to paint the pictures for folks. Like I really wanted that, like if we were going to the hood, we were going to be in a project, you gonna know, like we taking the stairs, there might be piss in the elevator, like those kind. Like if we in the campo, I want you to know we got a tin roof. The electricity is gone for a few hours. The mosquitoes are eating you. Like I want you to feel it. I want you to, like, if you've never been there, you there, and mostly because I know that these stories are seldom told. Like I know, like y'all not in the campos catching that heat, with no electricity. You know what I mean? Like not everybody is going to these spaces and is in these communities. And so I really just wanted for whoever, just to get a glimpse, just to feel it, and just to understand someone else's culture, and to also celebrate someone else's culture, and to celebrate other people to also celebrate their own culture. Because for a lot of people that was the norm, like if you were a child of immigrants, sometimes you would just get sent to a campo in the summer. You just have to survive, and it's just like no rules, just vibes. Like throw you in a river, you gotta learn how to
in the
swim.
street.
you might have amoeba pains, because you caught a parasite, like, you know, all types of things. But all of that makes you who you are. All of that teaches you so much and keeps you so humble and hungry to like continue experiencing the world. And so, I mean, I just think that our stories are so beautiful. And I just wish that there were more opportunities for folks like us to tell those stories, because we are decimal points in a huge system. And so our stories are just not, it's just, our stories aren't normalized. You know, it's like, here's this one writer with this one book, and, you know, like, we need more. There are so many of us out here who have these beautiful stories and so many diverse stories, and like, we're not a monolith. We need room for everyone to be able to tell their stories. And so I just wish that hopefully this can be a helpful tool, you know, and a stepping stone for more opportunities, you know, because like, you know, I just like I had folks, you know, other writers uplift me. I hope that this collection inspires other writers to continue telling their stories, you know.
Yeah, and I think it does do that. I think one thing that I want to celebrate about your storytelling is it's very specific to your experience, to the point where we all could get transported there. But folks who had different experiences can also see themselves in those stories. Like me, for example, I'm Puerto Rican. I don't have the exact same, you know, trajectory that you had and journey that you had, but I could still see a lot of my childhood, a lot of my mother's childhood, my grandmother, all of that in your stories. And I'm sure that that's the same for a lot of folks in the diaspora, you know, whether it's from the Caribbean, you know, Latin America, Africa, all of these different places that have those similar experiences of not having a westernized experience.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that in that you are going to inspire people to write their own stories, because they're able to now see a reflection of themselves. Even if it's just a part of themselves, they're going to say, oh, well, if Melania Luisa Marte can do it, maybe I can do it too. Maybe they're not going to be poets, but they're going to bring their stories into different spaces, and they're going to share that. And that's going to continue on and on and on.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you for this book. One thing I really want to celebrate, this woman's endings in her poems. I was just like, good Lord. Like, she just leaves you wanting more and more. And it's like you just like, you know, it's a good ending if you finish the poem and you're still thinking about it, and is making you think about like, oh, well, you know, what else is this sparking in me? What else happened? And all of these different thoughts. So,
I love that you said that. You know, I've gotten that a lot, and I'm like, really?
It's true.
Because a lot of folks have said like, yo, this, like, some of the lines that people have shouted out to me is the last line in one of the poems in part 2 that says, there is no wrong way to make it out alive. That one like stood out to folks a lot, because it's like, damn, that's like, you know, like, it's the way we talk about incarcerated folks. It's the way we talk about sex work. It's the way we talk about folks crossing borders. It's like, there is no wrong way to make it out alive. Like, we're all just trying to make it out alive. We're all just trying to survive and eat and be healthy, you know. And like the line when our bodies talk, from Hecha Completa, that line, when our bodies talk, how violent it be, you know, because I'm like unraveling, like, what if our bodies had a conversation with ourselves, and the way we treat it and the surgeries we do to it, the, you know, the way we like pick and pry open our bodies and tell it, oh, you're not enough of this, you need more of that, or this is too big, this is too small. Like, if our bodies could talk, how violent it would be, you know, regurgitating back to us how offended it feels on how we criticize it and demean it, and let society tell it what it needs to be, and that it's never enough, you know. And like those kinds of lines. And like lastly, the line someone mentioned to me the line from American Portrait, the line and maybe this is not my land, right? But who is more deserving of it than me? Like, who is more deserving of having safety and home than the folks who have been forced on boats and you know, like all of that, like, you know, displaced and then told to work for free labor and then told that they're still not American enough and that they still have to prove themselves. And so it's just like all of these things of the ways in which like Black folks and Indigenous folks are constantly stripped of their humanity. And I really wanted for those lines to like stand and confront white supremacy and confront Western culture and confront, you know, what is patriotism, what is nationalism, what does it mean to folks who have constantly had to live in the margins, you know, and have constantly had to say, I need to come, you know, the only way to be human is to play your game and view the world through your lens, right? Through a Western lens, through a white lens. And like, what does it mean to reject that and say, my lens is enough. My joy is enough. My rest is enough. My happiness is enough. My culture is enough. Right. So all of that is just like, I really pushed myself to leave the reader confronting and questioning and wanting to just be more and become more, you know, and do it within community with our humanities intact and understanding that we will not make it all out alive if we don't do this for each other and with each other.
And I think your endings are a good example of how you don't give the reader too much. You're giving just enough for them to get started, and then you're giving them the reins on, okay, now
It's
the
on
rest of the
you.
poem is yours.
Yeah.
Yep, it's on you. Exactly. And a lot of them for me felt like a mic drop. I was like, this is the Matatana Melania. Like,
but I come from the slam world. So like that was like the norm. Like our poems, they had to be 3 minutes. And then you had to have that one line that you could just, it's like you dropped the mic. It really is. I'm glad you said that because it really is like you dropped the mic without dropping the mic. But you really had to leave them or else you weren't going to win the competition. And if there's one thing I'm going to do in life, I'm going to win. Okay. But it really is like that mic drop where you're just like, damn, okay. Like it makes you think you and it rings in your head because it's like a profound like ending. It's like you got to feel something. You're going to leave feeling something. You could cry, you could laugh, but I'm going to leave you feeling something. Just anything, you know, but you're going to leave feeling.
I don't think there are any poems in this collection where it's just like, oh, that was cute. And then like you just keep it moving. Like, no, like you got to pause after all of them. And I think what I had the good blessing of actually knowing what you sound like. So I was reading all of the poems with your voice in my head, which made it even more powerful because, you know, I've heard you slam before. I've heard you read your poems before. So it really does take it to that next level.
Yeah. Any slam poets? No. Everybody retired from slam.
It's a dying art, I guess. Look, let me tell you, they did Whelps in Baltimore this past year. And I didn't go, but I looked at the lineup and I think I only knew like 3 poets.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, are we old heads?
Are we old?
I mean, you a mama now. So.
Yeah, I'm a mother.
Yeah.
I am a mother.
You're in a whole different.
I don't even got the energy to slam. I would pass out. I'm like the stamina I used to have. I don't got that in
you
me
can
no
judge.
more.
You
know, people like I got that dog in me, and it's like a puppy, like cuddled up. That's me. Like I got that doggy in me.
Rio's taking all your energy.
Yeah, it's real. Toddlerhood
is a serious thing.
I'm in shambles.
Okay. I mean, he is your son. So, but you know, on that note, like I know motherhood is a huge. Have you ever heard of the word matrescence?
No, what's that?
So essentially think of it like puberty, but what happens to a woman when they become a mother.
Okay, because that's what's happening to me. That makes perfect sense.
Okay, so explain. Tell us.
I mean, it's just like I feel like my whole world shifted. You know, I was writing something on this, and I was like, motherhood is delicious in the way that you are. Like, I just feel like I've opened up in so many ways. Just my senses have opened up. My heart, the way I like, even the way things just taste in my, like everything is just shifted in a way. I don't even know how to explain it. But I think the beauty in that is that I feel like children are just so present. And it's just like, it makes you just rethink everything around you, rethink the way you even see the world, rethink the way you see your mother, rethink the way you see your partner, like the world, like having so much more. Like for me, I feel like it has helped me have so much more compassion for my mother, for my family, for myself, so much more patience. Yeah, all of that. And it's just like, also just, you just expand in ways that I never envisioned. It's just so beautiful. I just feel like I'm a better human because of it. I'm a better human because of Rio. Like I just, like the patience I have, I'm like, wow, who is this girl?
You know what I think is beautiful, and you probably didn't even notice it. As you were speaking about this, compared to how you responded to the other questions, you were much softer.
Yes,
and you were
I've softened
naturally
up.
smiling, like
Yeah.
just like talking about motherhood.
Oh my goodness, it's beautiful. It's everything. I mean, if you want it, I wanted it.
Yes.
So for me, it's everything. But it's like, I feel like if you want it and if you're present in it, it's beautiful. And also if you have the community and the help, because honestly, I could not do this without my community. I could not do this without the help of the grandmas and the dad. Like if I
Shout
didn't
out to the
have,
grandma babysitting right now.
uncles, like I need that community. I need that help, and I need the resources also, because babies are expensive. So buy my book, okay?
Yes, that's what we're here for today. Okay.
Literally, yeah. Like it takes a village.
You are
It
funding
takes
a toddler
community.
when
You
you
are
buy this
funding,
book.
yes.
You need to have a picture of Rio on the back of this book.
My headshot should have had like Rio
I
in the
know, right?
corner. But yeah, no, it's beautiful if you want it and if you're ready for it and if you're present in it. It just takes a lot, and you want to make sure that like you're ready for it. Because for me, like for example, I dealt with postpartum depression, and I had the community to help me through it, and it's like I wouldn't have made it without the help of my community, because I don't think that individualism can function within motherhood. I don't think so. I
think in most things,
yeah,
individualism is not.
Yeah, it's never the answer.
Yeah.
No.
So community all the
Community
way.
always. Yes.
Well, thank you, Melania, for
you.
answering my questions. Speaking of community, we're going to open up the mic to you all. Do you have any questions, any comments, any thoughts you'd like to share? Go ahead.
Hi. What was your name? Carolina. Hi, it's good to see you. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Wow. That's a problem. Yeah, so I think the most
hold up. Let's repeat it for the folks
okay,
online.
You got it, girl.
Accessibility is important.
Thank you.
So the question was, what is the most challenging part of the publishing process, and what is the most rewarding part?
So I think the most challenging was, let's see, what was the most challenging? It was a challenge. It was. I think it's because I wanted this collection to expand past just Afro-Latinidad and really be a conversation on Black womanhood. For me, the most challenging part was being sensitive to how to navigate that conversation and make sure that I'm not speaking for all women. Like I wanted to speak for myself, speak for women who experience these things, but I didn't want to be that voice of like, oh, this is the way we're going to navigate and be able to like survive patriarchy and like, oh no. I was like, no, I want the reader to navigate that for themselves. I want the reader to discover their roots for themselves. I don't want to be this like voice, I want to be this guide. I think there's a difference between like taking up, space in someone else's narrative and taking up the space that is your reality. And so although like the collection is considered like fiction, it's like a lot of it is based on the realities of women because they're based on my realities. And so I think that it was just challenging of just holding all of those things at once, and challenging myself to like not be afraid to like have those poems that unpack anti-Blackness, internalized anti-Blackness, the poems that are just difficult to write because, like Climacteric Wonders, where I'm talking about like just the exhaustion of being policed, the exhaustion of constantly functioning in, in spaces that make you feel microaggressed and unworthy and all of that. Like it's heavy on the heart, it's heavy on the spirit, just someone, it's like the poems where we're talking about how heavy it's on the body, how heavy it's on the spirit, to live in a society that is constantly telling Black women that they are not enough, that they are not worthy, and that their culture looks better on someone else. Their body looks better on someone else. Their lips look better on someone else. Their ass looks better on someone else. Like you're constantly being told that we're not enough, right? And so I wanted to really be honest about that and also let other folks speak for themselves, right? And take that and go and not be judgmental, really have compassion and be tender and be soft and let other women be soft as they read the poems. And it's very difficult to do that in the midst of the rage and the grief and like, wanting to also have a little bit of light, because I always love to end with light. That's just something that I carry, is like, life is depressing enough. So we're gonna laugh at the end, we're gonna cry at the end, but we're also gonna laugh at the end. My favorite part was actually writing the humor poems, I think, because it gave me those breaks. So like, for example, the poem about like, if the club don't got 4 horses, then pasolas and siete motoconchos parked outside, I don't want it. Like if everybody not slow bopping to the love Kelly and Nelly shared while they were cheating on their booze, I don't want, like those poems. Like the poem about Hood History 101 is one of my favorites, Isla Cuentos, because it really, like, loco, esa gente ni se bañaban, y uno like, it really was fun to write because that's how people talk about the history on the island. Like, if you ask a colmadero, like, cuéntame cómo fue que pasó esto de la esclavitud, they were like, loco, esa gente ni se bañaban, y vino un sobrajoso, vinieron para acá de que jode a uno. Like, that's how they talk about it. And so I really wanted to, like, just personify like what that experience is like when you're like in the campos and like you hear people talking about politics and things like that in like humorous ways. I don't know, like my family is like really, really smart and also really funny. And so I kind of like really wanted to interlace that a lot. So it was like fun just getting to just be creative with like how to interlace the history and also the humor. Cause I think Caribbean people are funny. I think
we're hilarious.
Yeah. And I think the Black diaspora in general is hilarious. So I really just wanted for folks to like see like the silly uncle, the silly auntie, the silly cousins, and like feel that throughout the collection, because I think it just gives you, it's like a breath of fresh air. Like there's like the saying that like, there are like poems that like take the air out of the room, and there are poems who put the air back in. And so I feel like with the humor, you're able to just like feel that air coming back into the room, so yeah, I hope that answered your question.
That was a great question, by the way.
It was. Thank you.
What other questions do we have?
I ain't got no questions for me.
Folks acting shy.
Right?
Am I gonna make eye contact with
I got
people?
questions for y'all then.
Oh,
did
go
anyone
ahead.
read the book prior to coming here?
No.
Okay.
We take comments too. It's okay.
I dislike that phrase wholeheartedly, like with my whole chest. Yeah. Maybe I should read it so for the folks who don't know.
I think that's a good move.
Okay, let's read that poem so we can discuss.
And you see folks from the diaspora relating.
So it's on page 9. It's called Island Gal. Before the girlies tussle about it, remember that Manhattan is an island too. I was raised in Loisaida, the Lower Baruch projects, the crevice between the FDR Drive and the Ave. I wasn't born an island gal, but the vibes suit me. Ni de aquí ni de allá is a farce, and I would like to move past the fallacy of claiming nothing when you're made of everything. Some women have labored in boats. Some babies are born over ocean water. Some of us have wasted too much time waiting in water instead of living and winning. This is the poem that dances with both hips. This is not to discredit the confusion or pain. This is just a reminder that all energy has purpose. And wouldn't you rather spend it whining that waste and touching the earth than explaining to some uncultured fool how you, poor you, blessed and favored you, were gifted too much culture and too much light and too much talent and too much body and too much history and too much autonomy, and you foolishly have no idea what to do with it. Period. Because, and this really poem came from me when I was like, it's really annoying, but like when you first start writing poetry, you end up writing this like traumatic, devastating diaspora poetry. And it's just like, oh, the mangoes made me remember the blah, blah, blah. And you just end up like, that's how I used to write. I used to write from like a very like super romanticized and also super devastated place. And I be like, girl, no, now when I read, I'm like, girl, are you like, what?
You just gotta celebrate and focus on the
exactly
growth. That's all.
But the growth, it's like the intellectual and emotional growth to be like, you know what, this is not a bad thing. Like, lucky you que tú tuviste dos diferentes casas. Lucky you que tú tuviste dos diferentes sitios donde tú te sentías bien. Like where you felt at home. Like how lucky it is to go to your parents' country of origin and feel a sense of home, and how lucky it is to come back and feel a sense of home. And so like this idea that ni de aquí ni de allá, and like, oh, I'm like in an ocean and I'm like in the air, I'm in limbo. Like I just think it's a disservice to all of what we are, you know. And I think it also strips us of choice. It strips us of our history. It strips us of our lineage. It strips us of honoring our ancestors when we're constantly like, you know, like, I'm a no Salmo kid, I'm a this, and I don't know English, I don't know Spanish like that. Like, okay, so take a Spanish class. You want to learn more about your parents' native language? Take a class. You go to the country, spend some time with family, learn how they lived. You know, I think it's just like so humbling to just say like, you know what, I'm actually gonna do the hard thing and the brave thing and discover my roots, and not be like, oh, I don't know. Like, no, go figure it out. Vete pa'l campo. Like, go live in a hut. Like, go do that and see what comes out of that, and see how much more understanding you can get from that. You know, I think it's very like when we say ni de aquí ni de allá, it feels like we're coddling ourselves to not find the answers, and it's like lazy. It feels lazy, you know, because, and I'm checking myself too, not just y'all. Like, it feels lazy when we say, oh, I'm not from here, I'm not from there. I'm like, where am I? I'm from like nowhere. Like, you're from everywhere. You're like a product of a whole diaspora. Like, you are, it is in you, you know, you are a part of it, you know. And it's just like, let's focus on that. And solutions.
And it feeds into the whole imposter syndrome idea.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. Because
because-
if you don't know who you are, you can keep making excuses for why
Right.
you ain't where you want to be and you don't do what you want to do.
Exactly.
Period.
So-
I didn't
and
mean to come for y'all like that. I'm coming for myself too.
She's really talking about herself.
Yeah, because that's what I had to do. I was like, what are you gonna do about it? What are you gonna do about it? Vete pa lo plátano, búscate lo plátano, al plátano volvemos. Like I was like,
And
what are
then
you
she
gonna
went
do about
farming.
it? I literally was farming
That's true
plantains.
story.
That's
Yes.
a true story.
We're with the baby coconut.
Literally. I had like a tiny baby fruit series during the pandemic. And like anytime I would find like a little fruit, I'd be like, look, it's a baby avocado. And it would be like the tiniest little like
I actually found a baby coconut in Puerto Rico the last
Isn't
time
it
I
the
went, and
cutest
I
thing?
thought of you.
Isn't it
And
the
then my
cutest thing?
husband didn't let me bring it back.
You should have
so.
cracked it open. See the inside.
So on that note,
Why didn't you let her take
we're-
it? I
Well,
just caught that. I was like, that's
look,
rude. Let her
well,
live.
I'm not gonna get into the whole story, but let's just say homie tried to bring home a hermit crab. So
Oh yeah.
we're not this is the off mic kind of conversation.
Did they confiscate it?
No. So long story short, he thought it was an empty conch shell. And then he brought it into the hotel room.
And it came
And
alive.
in the middle of the night, I hear tapping and there's a whole hermit crab inside. Yeah, we have the pictures too.
That's so cute. Did you like make a little house for her?
He put it back in the ocean.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he saved it.
All
So
right.
he righted his wrongs.
That's cool. You did the right thing.
He loves animals, so he wasn't gonna let it die. But so we are ending this conversation on light, on
Yes.
laughter.
Yes.
So
Thank y'all
you,
for being
Melania.
here. This was so much fun.
Thank you, Eat City Bookshop.
Yes.
Buy a book, get
Shout
it
out to
signed,
y'all.
talk to
Thank you.
Melania.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you both, and thank you everyone for being here. So we're gonna get signing table out, and if you could help us out by folding your chair and just putting it up on either side, we'll take care of it. If there's a little bookmark on it, you could just put it on the couch, and I'll. Thank you again, and thank you, virtual audience.